Making Big Shifts, presented by Marketing Reboot, with your host, Josh Anderson.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Making Big Shifts by Marketing Reboot. I'm your host, Josh Anderson, where we talk to the real entrepreneurs making the big shifts and how you can do so yourself to help your work and life. Today, really excited, we got Bill Miller. He's a co-founder of Zabooom. He's a CEO advisor and a 3-time award-winning author, with the latest book being What Every CEO Must Know, 37 Secrets to Lead with Confidence and Power. So welcome to the podcast, Bill.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, so you have obviously a storied history with dealing with leadership and things of that nature, from struggling CEOs and new CEOs, leaders at every stage, right? I want to start with the big shift. So what's the moment when a founder realizes being a CEO is different than starting a company?
So it really depends on the age of the founder and the
Yeah,
experience level. So I've worked with young kids who are founders because, if they're digital natives, they came up writing code, probably at least HTML code or something, and they could write a SaaS in a weekend or whatever. And voila, I'm a CEO. Now what do I do?
yeah, for sure.
But the majority of my background is with first-time CEOs, and some of those are founders, and they don't realize the difference for quite some time. When you're a founder, you have to do founder-led marketing and founder-led sales, and it really depends on what your fundamental background is. If you're an engineer, you absolutely have no clue about sales and marketing, even if you think you do.
Yeah,
If you're a sales guy, you absolutely have no idea what motivates engineering or operations. You just don't get it. And I write about that actually in both books, where, one of the first time CEOs, and he's still a friend today, near and dear to my heart, was a former sales executive at a very large company. And he became the CEO of a startup, fairly early stage. It wasn't super early stage, but it was, let's call it the second phase of early stage, where now you're getting ready to launch the company and the products. But he was a sales guy, and he had a really hard time understanding what motivated engineers. He thought he could roll in a wheelbarrow of $1,000
yeah,
and think that it matters to Silicon Valley engineers, and it doesn't. That's not what motivates them.
yeah.
And the majority of them in the startup already had exited somewhere or had made money at Sun Microsystems or, someplace like that. And they really didn't need, 10 or 20 or $30,000 in cash. That's not what they're there for. So what you find is that um, it depends on their background, it depends on their age, it depends on their maturity levels. Today, because of AI, which is the biggest shift going on in
Right.
leadership and everything else, because of AI, you have Sam Altman saying that there's going to be a one-person billion-dollar company faster than ever before. Well, I
Crazy.
don't think there's any one-person, $1 billion companies. So being faster than ever before, it'll be the first time ever.
Right. Yeah.
But AI does allow that to happen. And one of the things that my newest biggest shift is starting to add AI enhancement to my leadership,
Right.
my own, and coaching and advising. You can build your own little uh, therapist, if you will, or your own little coach. You can do it if you understand just how to prompt.
Right. Exactly.
Most CEOs don't get their hands dirty when it comes to technology very well. Some might, but they're better with spreadsheets or something, where they're doing their plans and whatever. They do slide decks for the board and whatever it is that they do. But the fact is that you can take a slide deck, for example, that you just created for a board meeting. You can give it to ChatGPT or Claude or any one of your favorite AI tools and say, tell me what the biggest potential holes are here for board of directors that beat the daylights out of me, and how do I fix it?
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of how you can enhance your leadership. And I think that's the biggest change that's going on. That is by far the biggest shift going on right now. And my next book is going to be about CEOs and leaders in the AI era. So I don't know when
Okay.
you're going to see that. It was 5 years in between my two books. I don't know when you'll see the next one, because the Zabooom is taking up a lot of time and energy. My business and life partner, Connie, we started this thing last at the end of the summer, the early part of the fall. We're getting some traction. We're busy as can be for the two of us. Why I'm doing this now is beyond me, but it's fun.
Punishment, huh?
Yeah, well, you know what? I love technology. I have since I was a kid. I have over 5 decades in the technology world, starting in the 60s. In the computer world, I worked for, Honeywell was one of my first jobs. They were the other computer company back then when I first started to learn how to program. They didn't even call it coding back then. It was programming, right? But I've had to reinvent it as I moved from development into marketing and really became marketing and product management for the majority of my leadership years. I ran operations at a SaaS company. I've done, and that's where I stepped into consulting is part of my life reinvention. It's because you get to a certain age, it's hard to get a job. So you have to put your own shingle out.
There you
And
go.
I got a couple of jobs by starting as a consultant, and I just kept my shingle up all those years. So, and I was writing a book through many of those years. So, my first book was just because this was one of my first shifts. My first visionaries. I worked for all these first-time CEOs in a row. And you start to see things that they don't see. Almost most of those years, I had a seat at the table, so I was at the board meetings, I was on the senior leadership team. So I had a seat and I had a voice. But when you're a VP or an SVP or a CXO, not CEO, the CEO listens to what you say, but they may not process it. So they're still going to do it their own way. I try to coach people, listen to what your team tells you. They see your blind spots. You don't see them. You don't know you have them. It's kind of like the blind spot in the mirrors in your car or truck. There is a blind spot there. Whether you like it or not, you have to turn around to take a look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
On leadership teams, if you have developed trust with your team and you listen to what they say and they can honestly provide feedback in a feedback loop to you and they're in a safe space, they know they're in a safe space. It's not going to cost them their job by saying, you're the biggest problem here or something
Yeah, yeah.
like that because of the way you're communicating. I try to coach people to do that, be open, listen, ask for feedback. Today, if you're honest with yourself, you can use ChatGPT or Claude or these tools to help you process all the information that comes from others and try to get a good third party view. So that's kind of how I view things. And I have seen these changes over the years. It is pretty amazing how things have changed and leadership is changing. So, I mean, the fundamentals of leadership, I don't think they're ever going to change. And on a couple of podcasts over the last couple of months, people have said, in the world of AI, what jobs do you see never going away? And I don't like to use the word never, but I think that the CEO will always be there. Even if the CEO has a team of AI agents as part of his or her team, you still have to have the human in the loop. And in this case, the CEO is the one that's making the strategic decisions, processing all the information, and they still have to have the strategy and the direction and the brain to lead forward. Yes, AI agents are replacing repetitive work, especially lower levels. Unfortunately, for it's going to change over time. It will change how you breed people within your company, right? For jobs, it is definitely going to change there. But the CEO job is not going to go away, and the closer on the sales team.
So, yeah.
I'm sure that there are some AI implementations in sales today where you're actually talking to other robots. So
Yeah.
it's when robots talk to robots, and I've seen this, God knows what's going to happen. But I really believe that a human in the loop is required to close any complex deals. Those are the two things I see, at least in the foreseeable future, not changing, at least not being replaced. But
Being augmented.
you do enhance those roles. I mean, AI enhances all those roles. That's the biggest shift I see.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the podcast really quick. If you're getting value from making big shifts, please subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next conversation. All right, appreciate it. And now back to the podcast. Gotcha. Yeah, those are all great. I do want to kind of go into some of the few things you said there. So one is when we talked about the blind spots at maybe let's go, for example, a new CEO. What blind spots do you normally see are the most common that are damaging companies?
So when you're an egotistical leader, you don't listen. You might hear somebody say something, but you don't really listen and process it. That's probably one of the biggest blind spots that exist. Also, the one I mentioned earlier, if you come from one functional background, like sales or engineering or finance even, you don't have the experience across all business functions. Some of the more qualified first-time CEOs are former general managers or COOs,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
where they've already led an organization somewhere with multiple functions, and they may not know every function. Like a COO typically doesn't have HR and doesn't necessarily have finance. Those are the two groups sometimes that stay with the CEO, and the CEO runs operations. But if that person moves into the CEO role, they need to learn really how to lead and work with those business functions. So those are the key blind spots. But
I want
really,
to.
if
Sure. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Go ahead
I'd
with the
say
question.
building off the egotistical leader earlier. So like every CEO must know book, right? It's talking about building the confidence and power, right? So what are some good practical tips for first time CEOs to build that confidence without venturing into that egotistical, arrogant aspect of leading, right? I know a lot of it's emotional intelligence and things of that nature, but what tips could you provide there?
Well, first of all, read the book. It's a great resource. The thing that's interesting is independently, Kirkus is an independent reviewer of books, third party. And when they get your book, they read it. You don't have to use their reviews because they're not always good. They basically said two things that stuck out with me. And I just got this review back last week is it's an accessible reference tool for business leaders. The one ding against me was that I have a tight niche of CEOs, but it really applies across all business leaders, which is true, but I'm focusing on first time CEOs and founders. And so I'm okay with that comment, but I understand what they're saying. And the other thing is because I emphasize real stories and I don't use a lot of jargon and I don't use any theory in this book. It's all real stories from real CEOs. And I do critique it. Some of the people I was part of their journey. Other people I was not directly involved in their theory, but I know them. But a lot of the CEOs identify the company name, their own name, the company name, and it was all about the biggest mistake they made, how they could have avoided it, how they
Yeah.
recovered from it, if they did, because not everybody recovered from some of these mistakes, and how they moved forward. And so the contour of the book with the 37 secrets is 37 chapters divided by very specific, like there's a founder section, a strategic section, a decision making section. Decision making is one of the toughest things for first time CEOs. But by going into this book, you can accelerate, if you're a first time CEO or founder, you can accelerate your learning path by reading real stories and real experience that these in decisions that CEOs had to make. How did they make the decision? Why did they make the decision? What was the mistake that they made? And that's why the book itself is very good. And I focus this book on confidence because what I did learn with all the years of working with CEOs, whether it was for them, with them, or as a consultant coach for them or advisor, is that they all have number one, they all have blind spots that they don't know what
Yeah.
they are. Most of them have confidence during the day in front of their team, or at least they try to. But man, when they're driving home and they get home, they have imposter syndrome or some version of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how am I going to solve this problem? How am I going to get by this? How am I going to tell the board this? How am I going to tell my team this is happening? How am I going to tell people they're only going to get 2% raises? How do I do these things?
Yes.
And still maintain respect and kind of control of my team. So there are great techniques in the book on how everything from how to find the right founder, what happens when you don't. It's just a couple of really good stories in there from people that I do know fairly well and have interviewed them myself on podcasts like this. CEO success story that I do for Cloud Voice Alliance, which is a sponsorship. But what is interesting is that everybody who's read the book thinks that there's takeaways for them in that book.
Love it.
There's
Yeah.
everything from ethics and integrity to, egotistical decisions. And what's really funny is there's stories in there about not hiring fast enough because I can do it all. And there's other stories in there very similar. You hired too fast because you thought, and and so you kind of have to read those stories, understand the decision making process by that CEO, and then put yourself into their shoes to say, which camp am I in? Am I making a mistake by hiring too fast? And a lot of times these people have never had revenue responsibility. They might have product line responsibility if they come from the product management side or the product side. They understand product line P&L, but they don't understand the big picture. And that's been one of my personal superpowers over the years is I always had a view for the big picture. Even when I was working as an engineer on this small piece, I always really took extra time on my own to try to understand how it fit into the bigger picture. And leadership, if you can't figure that out, you're bound to fail. You have to understand how every decision can impact people. And there's I provide in the 37 secrets to what every CEO must know book, which is this one, right? In that book, I provide a lot of mini frameworks. Those mini frameworks are things that I've applied over the years and I coach on. And what's interesting is now I'm trying to help people use those mini frameworks and use AI to enhance them for themselves. So you take the mini framework,
Yes.
put it into whatever tool you want to use, put it into memory and say, this is how I make decisions. This is how I think. Here are all the things that are in this framework. Now here's today's situation. I have 30 people. Here's our revenue is short. Sales is coming in with this pipeline that I don't know it exists. What are the right questions to ask? What are the dangerous questions to ask? You can take these frameworks, enhance them with AI, and all of a sudden you have a consultant that doesn't cost you
Right.
thousands of dollars a day
Yeah.
or an
Yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
and it will help you accelerate your leadership capabilities. And that's kind of what I try to do now is to try to help people. At this part of my career, I'm trying to give back. I mean, writing a book, 2 books now to help people see things that they don't even know exist, or they won't admit that they exist unless they're at home lying in. I mean, I know. These people have told me. He said during the day, I have staff meetings, I have customer and partner meetings. I put on this great front, and then I get home and say, "What the heck am I going to do to solve this problem? I don't know how to
Yeah.
solve this problem."
Yeah.
And so these are the kinds of things that my writing and my speaking try to help people with. There is help available. Some of the more successful CEOs do have a coach, and I have a couple of clients. We have 2 calls a month for an hour apiece. Sometimes they're a little longer, sometimes they're a little less. But the one CEO will tell me, and I've been with this guy for about 4 years now. He says, "When I get off a phone call with you, I feel so much better and invigorated that I'm good for the next 2 weeks." That's the kind of feeling
Yeah.
that I love. That just makes my day,
Totally.
So that's kind of how I view things. And
Yeah.
really,
No, I'll make
the blind spots are the biggest issue for a first time CEO because a blind spot can kill a company.
yeah. If and throughout your history, like say you had to see one recurring mistake that happens over and over. Is there one that you always see? I know you gave a couple of them, but I just didn't know what the most common mistake you see is.
Probably the biggest common denominator, and I don't really think I write about it in the book, is that although there are examples in the book, but when the CEO takes their eye off of something because they think it's going okay,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You have to have consistency is pretty critical. And I think I mentioned earlier, what every CEO must know is about confidence, and the confidence instills power for the CEO so that now they don't have to go home with imposter syndrome. They go home and say, "Okay, I got this. I'm not worried about it. I've thought about the 12 different things that might happen. I've talked to every department head on my senior leadership team. I'm pretty comfortable that everybody has the same answer about what direction we're going. The decisions that CEO is making, people know how and why he makes decisions."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the things in the decision process. Sharing how you make decisions and why with your team is very critical because when people lose their trust in you, it's when you make a decision, they don't know about it, they don't know why you made it, and it impacts them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told in the past, "You're going to lay off such and such. I don't care whether you like that person or not. We're doing a 10% cut across the board. That person's going," for something that happened way before I was at the company. That's happened to me. But sit down with me and tell me what's going on and why. And then I may not like it, but if that's something that has to happen because that's what the CEO wants for whatever reason, tell me why.
Right.
So
Yeah. Communication, trust, but verify all that sound. Yeah.
trust and verify is one of the chapters. Yes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then, so we talked about a lot of mistakes, right? Like I've asked that question in a roundabout way a few times here, but what traits make a good CEO? Obviously, confidence equals, and that the power behind that. But what good traits make a great CEO?
Well, it starts with communication. I think you need to be able to communicate with your senior leadership team, with your employees, with your customers, and with your partners. So, honest, open communication is one of the most important attributes that are important. In that communication, I mentioned feedback loops. Feedback loops work across all of that.
Hmm.
Feedback loops for your senior leadership team, feedback loops through you can have anonymous suggestion boxes, which larger companies have had in the past where I've been for all employees, where they can put in. Now, today, where people work remotely a lot, you may not have the anonymous box unless you have a website landing page that you can do things through incognito windows. So, but the same is true with partners. If you have partner meetings, partner conferences, an open communication so that you can collect everything that you don't see. You really don't see it. Even if your head of channels might tell you, your senior vice president of channel marketing might tell you everything's going great. The channel partners love our programs. Everything is going great. But then you talk to the channel and they say, that's not true in any way, shape, or form. So you have to have the communications to them. And the same is true for customers. So now today, because online has changed everything, you can look at Glassdoor and get comments, reviews and get comments. You just have to be able to process them properly because a lot of people buy reviews, competitors put up things to damage your reputation. You have to have a process that can review those. And unfortunately, all of those things cost money. And that's why you start to employ AI in places where agents are inexpensive. You just need somebody who understands how to create them, how to manage them, because that's the new leadership. How do I manage agents?
Yeah.
And when there's a bug, how do you can solve people problems, but it's harder to solve agent problems. So
Yeah. Yeah.
those things do occur. We're learning how to do a lot of that stuff here. It's a boom because there's a lot of, we create agents and then there's logic behind the agents. And you have to be able to make sure that, it's really no different. It's just that you can automate everything
Yeah.
today for many things. And so when there's a problem, finding that problem is different than when it's done by people. So anyway,
Yeah.
those are some of those things.
Yeah. Well, I do want to throw a hypothetical at you as well. So, like you deal with founders and first time CEOs, things of that nature. If you come across a founder that is, I also do a hypothetical. Say he's really good at product marketing, but he's not good at sales. Like as he's coming up, how do you hand that aspect off and like go out and find that right person to be either a co-founder or like the CRO? What is the process for figuring that part out?
Well, co-founders are different than finding the right person for a job. Finding a co-founder, you really have to be aligned on uh, personal values, life values. I keep politics out of it, but if you're aligned there, that helps. But I typically don't include those. But for example, if the person that you wanted to be a co-founder with you, but they want to take a salary and you know that they can't take a salary for the first year or two as a co-founder, that's not going to work. And really, some of the biggest issues at startups are co-founder disagreements. Now, there's a couple of stories in the book on having the wrong co-founder, one that got the company in trouble with the IRS. And so she had to buy out this co-founder eventually and then pay the IRS penalties because that person didn't take care of that stuff. So that's a perfect example. And then something that is very common in the co-founder world of startups, two people that work at one company decide they can do it. So they go and they do a startup together. One of them has to be the CEO. Somebody has to be the key decision maker. Maybe it's whoever puts in the most money or whatever it is. It could vary. But the fact is that once you start to get down to more difficult decisions, you're not going to always agree. And so you have to have either bylaws that protect that, or you have to have it worked out, or that person can't be the co-founder as much as you may want them because it's not going to work. There's some really great stories that are true, and a couple of them are interesting because two people that gave me co-founder stories, and they did it independently of each other, have now formed their own company.
Okay, that is funny. Yeah.
They each have two other companies, but they formed another company that runs on top, in the AI world that runs on top of their other companies. But there's this new one, and what they became managing directors each, but one's a CEO and one's a CTO.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're both CEOs of other companies. So that's an example that turned out to be a bonus chapter in the book
There you go. Yeah.
where they didn't even know I was going to do that until after they read the first, the draft of the book. And they said, whoa, I didn't know you were going to do that. And these people have been on my panels at IT Expo, which I've run for the last 6 years, down in Fort Lauderdale in February's. I have a CEO Insights panel, and some of these people that are in the book have been on those panels. So it's pretty good stories and pretty true. Now, when you say, here's a person that's run product marketing and they're now the CEO. Maybe they're the founder and the primary founder and CEO, and they're product marketers. Product marketing is a sales enablement role. So product marketing's whole goal in life, and I've been a product marketer by title earlier on in my career, but I have been, and their goal is to create tools for sales to be able to do the job better. Now, product marketing doesn't always get along with sales because sales says, I need these things for lead generation. You're giving me these things. They're not the same. They don't work. So they either need to communicate together and work very closely together, or they're not going to work. Somebody needs to be replaced. And the CEO is typically not the one that gets replaced.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's up to the CEO to work with that salesperson. And there's a couple of chapters in the book on working with sales because CEOs that have never run sales don't know how to lead sales. And that's a given. And I have some really good examples in the book on how they don't know how to hire them. They don't know how to pay them. They don't even know how to interview them, let alone, so there's some really good examples there. People who are product marketers actually do know how to interview them and should be able to have a good communication path so that whatever is created for sales enablement and for lead generation, everybody agrees on. That's one of the key things in early stage startup because, the first customers typically come through referrals, whether it's from the investors, the board of directors, friends. In our particular case at Zabooom, our first customers have come. We've backed into finding somebody who is a district manager, and the district manager is introducing us to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Both inside his district and people that he used to work with. So, we have our first customers that are coming online, and we have a nice pipeline.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
we're doing very well. But at some point in time, as we scale, we may need to have, I consider myself an expert at hiring, and I talk a little bit about that. I have some frameworks to help in hiring different types of roles. And like I said, my frameworks are all mini frameworks. They're easily adjustable for the individual reader, but it gives you a framework that you can build around. And if people ask me, is lead magnets in the book, I'll send them a spreadsheet or a CSV file or a Word file or something that they can, or a Google Doc or something that they can take and edit it for themselves. But it's a starting point. And it's not an AI starting point. It's a proven mini framework from over the years.
Right.
But my favorite one is one, because I figured you might ask me that question. So I have a favorite one. My favorite one is all of these first-time CEOs and founders, sometimes they lead by seat of the pants. And it's actually okay in a startup because everything is so fast and you have to bounce around a lot. But you should at least have your own framework for your business, even if it's just in your brain. So I have something that I started to do 35 years ago, maybe even more, is every Friday I used as an administration day, an admin day. And I would set aside 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, depends on the size of the role that I had. And I call that a mirror meeting with myself. It's still on my calendar today. I still have it today. And what you do is you reflect because The best leaders always reflect on what happened the previous week. Did I accomplish what I was supposed to accomplish? Did I skip things on purpose because I was afraid to address them? Are those things going to hurt the business? Are they going to hurt me as a leader? And then you put the plan together for the following week. Okay, I'm going to address these things. And you have to be totally open and honest with yourself. And you have to reflect by yourself. It's something that you have to do. You have to be open and honest communication with your own brain. And so that mirror meeting is, to this day, one of my favorite things. You can call it whatever you want. It's a time for reflection and a time to really understand, how did your decisions impact you and the company the previous week, the previous month, whatever, and how are they going to be, what am I going to do next week to address those things? And yes, sometimes you get behind, other times you get ahead. There's a balance, but that's one of my favorite things. There's many others in the book that are really important, but that's one of my favorites, because if you don't reflect, you lose control. You just do. It's similar to stay in touch with your team so you know the pulse of every business function in your company. You're not going to ever know every detail, but you got to keep a pulse on, are there serious problems? Is somebody not doing something that you're expecting them to do that you need to present at the next board meeting on? Maybe you had a conversation with your vice president of marketing or your CMO, and you think they're off doing something, and they say everything's fine, and you don't ask any more questions. That's it. And then the week before, when you need the draft slide deck, the CMO says, "What are you talking about? I didn't do that." Those are the surprises. I used to tell my teams all the time, no surprises.
Yeah.
If there's a problem, tell me sooner so that we can address it.
Yep. Get in front
So
of it.
I'm an iterative kind of guy. I like to see iterations of plans, documents. I'm not going to tear it apart. That's not my intent. I want to see progress. And I think those are things that CEOs need to see from their senior leadership team.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I love the mirror meeting. I think that's something everybody can put on their calendar starting this week, right? So, Bill, what are you working on right now that you're excited about? I know we got into a lot of this already, but you talked about Zabooom and some of the other things. Well, what's getting you excited now?
Okay, well, Zabooom is the most exciting thing we're working on. For example, yesterday we started the day with an email that says, from one of the clients that we just did a presentation to, "I'm in. We're going. We're doing it."
Yeah.
And that's just exciting.
So, what exactly is Zabooom doing then?
So we're doing voice AI, and we've focused on outbound calling of leads. And we're focused on insurance agents, small insurance agencies. So all of these large insurance companies, all of their agents are independent agency owners, and they're 2 to 10 people. So there's the agency owner. They form a company. Some of them are LLCs, some of them are C corps, some of them are S corps, some of them are corporations, some of them are Incs. It really depends on how much money they have and the tax, how they want their taxes to work. Some are sole proprietors, actually. So at the end of the day, they buy leads. So if you've ever shopped for home or auto or life insurance, or even to move, you go online to a website and you fill out a form. Well, those companies, you're opting in to be called by all these different companies. And so these companies buy leads, and they have agents and producers that call these leads. Except the problem is humans can only call so many people, and 75% or more of these calls are wrong numbers because they're older leads. They're on the do not call list, so they need to be scrubbed first. Somebody might be deceased in the family, or they don't drive anymore, or they're on Medicare. Things like this happen, but they have to opt in. And so we create a script around what the agency typically does when an agent calls a client and says, and because of the laws, there are laws, and they're looking for bad actors of robocallers. We try to stay within, we do stay within the law. And the prompt has to say, "Hi, my name is," I think we have a demo on our website, Zabooom.com has a demo, a couple of demos. "Hi, my name is Courtney. I'm an AI assistant for, XYZ insurance company. A while back, you asked for a quote. Are you still interested in lowering your insurance costs?" So there's something that's within guidelines. And you're calling a lead that has opted in because they've asked for a quote for insurance. Now you're calling them back. It might be sometime later. They may not even remember asking for one. Or somebody might say, you call me every 4 months, nothing's changed or whatever. And, some people don't want to talk to an AI, but more people like talking to an AI now. And the really weird thing is that AI is going to be all calling pretty soon.
Yeah.
I project. So what we do is we identify the people that pick up the phone. They're willing to talk to a live agent. You can't do any selling on voice AI, but you can do all the qualifications. You can say, are you still driving this car? Do you still live at this address? Is this still your date of birth? It kind of proves that they filled in a form in the past. And you confirm the data. And then if they want the quote, they'll say, call me back after 5 o'clock. I'm busy. Or, yeah, transfer me right away. So we'll do a warm transfer to a live agent and the quote can go out.
There you go.
And the insurance agents now spend more time talking to people that want to talk to them.
Yep.
And the AI agent is relentless. They don't care about rejection. They can call the hours of the day that are legal within that state. For example, in Minnesota here, it's 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So you can call throughout those hours. Some people don't like to do that. Most of the agents like to call like 9 to 5, and they'll set up calls, from 5 to 8. They'll take a call then or call a client back. So outbound is harder. Most of the voice AI systems that are out there, and there's a lot of them out there now, are inbound so that you don't miss a call. So hairstylists, plumbers, HVAC, doctor's offices, how many times do you call after hours and it says leave a voicemail and we'll call you back? And you may never get a call back. Now, if you do that with an inbound agent, the inbound agent can collect your name, address, email address, phone number, what you're calling about. And then when somebody calls back the next day, they have all this information in a contact record. So it's part of sales and marketing. There are laws that we have to comply with. It's very focused on the laws. The compliance, the agency has to do their part. They have to sign a contract that they buy these leads that are opted in, and then we provide the service. And we custom build for each agency so that the prompt is in the culture and the voice that they want. We can clone their voice. One agent uses his wife's voice. We cloned his wife's voice. But these are things, it's exciting and it's new. So there's this fear of missing out for some people. But if we get a referral for somebody out of state, I have to check those state laws first. There's about 13 states that some of those states don't even allow robocalling or AI voice calling. So we have to make sure that we're not doing that in a state that doesn't allow it. And then whatever the state rules, we will follow those state rules, like the hours of calling, what the prompt needs to say. But you do need to identify that you're a voice AI assistant. You're not a person. And if you want to talk to a live agent, it has to be an opt-out. At any time, you can transfer to a live agent or opt-out or be put on the do not call list. Some people say, put me on your do not call list. All of those things happen automatically and we track everything. So it's exciting.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah.
And Connie and I are having a blast doing it. I never thought I would do another startup, but here I am. Get to practice a lot of what I preach. And I continue to do other things. I published what every CEO must know in October. At the end of October was the ebook, and then the print books came out the 1st of November. They've been out there. I've won one award for that book so far. I had 2 awards for the first book. It's really nice when that happens. So people continue to buy the book.
And they can find it on Amazon, wherever books are sold, essentially.
Right. So Amazon has the ebook and the print books. I don't have an audiobook yet. I'll eventually have an audiobook. The first book has an audiobook as well as ebook and print. Everything's on Amazon, but the print books you can get at any retailer. If you walk into a Barnes & Noble, they're not going to have it on the shelf. They don't usually put self-publishers on the shelf. However, it's in their catalog system. So you can order it and they can get it in a few days.
All right.
If you go online, you can go online to any retailer. It's pretty much there. You can just order the print book as paperback and hardcover. But the ebook is only available on Amazon right now.
Okay.
Eventually, that'll be available on other sites. So, it's good. I enjoy that. And I do focus on confidence and power. but I've expanded my content now for 4 dimensions, not just the 2 dimensions. And that is confidence, clarity, resilience, and they lead to power. And so the next book is going to be about those 4 dimensions. My writing is already starting to introduce all of those, my writing and interviews. And the fact is that if you think about those 4 dimensions in the AI era, that's what I'm focused on right now. So you'll start to see on LinkedIn, for example, and I have a CEO Insights post on TMCnet, which is a commercial site. I have a blog over there. On those 2 areas, you'll see some of the writing where I'm going to be offering a lead magnet to give people some free CEO prompts that you can use and customize for yourself. And they're all built around those 4 dimensions. So
Love it.
it'll help people start to learn how to use the AI tools more like a CEO, not like, you don't just say, I want to go on vacation. Where should I go?
Yeah.
What are the restaurants locally?
Yeah.
What's
Totally.
going, because people use,
Yeah.
people use it like that. That's how they learn. But prompts can be very long. They can be very short, but you can stay focused. And I have all these frameworks already. You can couple my frameworks with some good prompts and customize it for yourself, and it will help you lead. And that's kind of my view of the next few years is the enhancement of AI with all of these traditional leadership skill sets. And then I have my own frameworks around them, which really they're real things that I've applied and that other CEOs apply. They're not they're not academic. They're not from somebody else's book. They're just not. They're things that real stories, no theory, real stuff, you can find some of these people on LinkedIn and ask them questions yourself. All of that stuff to me, is way more powerful than reading some of the academic leadership and CEO books that are out there.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. Love it. Now, as we as we wrap this up, I always ask this last one question. What is your last one piece of advice to give any new CEO or new founder? What would you tell them?
First of all, set your ego at the door. That's first.
Yeah. 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 Love it.
Talk to your people, no matter what the size of your company is. Get out and talk to people, ask a lot of questions and listen, and then start to process the information so that you can see. And don't be afraid to ask, what blind spots do you think I have? Don't be afraid to ask the question. People may not be honest with you. They may not be. But if you see a pattern there, and most CEOs are pretty smart, they're generally intelligent, they just don't have a good process of processing information, a process to make decisions. Every decision impacts your life. Think about your own personal life. When you were 12, you made a decision that went a certain way. When you were 16, you made a decision on asking somebody out. When you were 21, you made a decision. Every fork in the road is a decision that influences who you are and what you do. So in my first book, I talk about this PPLC, the path to CEO, the philosophy that you have, the leadership style that you create from those, and then the culture that you create in the company is all based on the PPO. So all of those decisions as you're growing up and as you get into corporate America and the jobs that you've had, that's what shapes you as a person. That's what gives you the philosophies that you bring. That's what brings the leadership style that you bring to the table. You can change because to me, leadership is a bunch of muscles. Just like if you're a highly skilled athlete, it's a bunch of different muscles that work together, including your brain. Leadership is no different. It's a bunch of muscles. There's an egotistical muscle that you don't use. There are negotiation muscles that you have to use. There are muscles on how to find out about blind spots and how to address them. I mean, you got to stop them before they occur. And that way you have a much better chance to succeed. There's always the idea of getting a coach, can be AI, can be a real person. Most CEOs that are successful will tell you they've had a coach at some point. Some people still have coaches. In the book, a couple of those people will tell you that they still have coaches. And that was very important to them. Another thing that I talk about that I mentioned before is every founder and first-time CEO needs a number two. That number two can be on your leadership team, or they can be a coach or an advisor or somebody who has experience, not the spouse, unless they have experience, not a friend, unless they have experience. Like, I'm a friend of some people. I will provide some guidance for free because they're a friend. But if it's in my subject matter expertise, it's good. But if somebody asks me about a topic that I know nothing about, like consumer goods, I can't help you. I can give you an observation, but I can't give you an answer because I don't know. I'm not a CPG guy. I don't know consumer products. I'm a B2B guy. I have been my whole career, and that's the way pretty much is. So anyway, I think that covers the excitement. That covers the leadership.
It does. 100%. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great conversation. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. People can find all my links on my Linktree. Everyone knows, I think, how to find Linktree. It's /Beeline Bill. That's my brand. BEELINE Beeline Bill.
Right on.
You can do a
Yep.
Google search on Beeline Bill. You can ask about Beeline Bill on AI. It should be able to find me, most of them. I've tried to train most of them. Maybe not all, but most of them can find me. And you can find my books there. You can find my websites there. You can find that. And then Zabooom, if you want to play with voice AI, go to Zabooom.com. It's 3 O's, ZABOOOM.com. And there's a couple of voice AIs demos on there. Just talk to the voice AI.
Love it. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Make sure to check out the book, What Every CEO Must Know, wherever books are sold, Amazon, and Zabooom with 3 O's, and then at Beeline Bill for the link tree. So,
You got
Bill, thanks you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Making Big Shifts by Marketing Reboot. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one. Hey, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Making Big Shifts by Marketing Reboot. It would be a huge help to us if you subscribe to the channel and share this with somebody that you think needs it. Your support helps us continue to bring great guests on board and keep the conversation going. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Making Big Shifts. Like, share, and follow for more. Join us next time on Making Big Shifts, presented by Marketing Reboot,